Hello Crows, today we are talking about a new job posting on the Warner Brothers careers page. I'm also going to play the Advocatus Diaboli and present some logical reasons why a Hogwarts Legacy 2 could have multiplayer. That's right, I'm kinda switching sides on you a little. Since Netflix bought Warner Brothers, I have been worried that would mean the end of Avalanche's multiplayer project. And to set the record straight, Avalanche Software is working on two games. The sequel to Hogwarts Legacy, and a separate multiplayer online RPG. At least that is what has been strongly suggested by the jobs we've been seeing here lately. I might, and it's a very strong might, be leaning towards the idea that the Hogwarts Legacy game and the multiplayer game might be more close to each other, aside from the fact that they are sharing the same building. Before we get into all that though, allow me a moment to celebrate. I was worried that the project was cancelled and that there being no job postings on the website spelled out doom. There was a second condition to that though. If the project was cancelled, then logically speaking, the people working on that project would eventually get laid off. That is something I kept to myself because it's a bit of a bummer, you know? No one wants to hear that before Christmas. I'm very happy to say that that is not true though. The dev team is still employed, and a new job posting has even shown up that is meant for a quote online multiplayer RPG. So huzzah, no layoffs. Now about this job. We have here an advanced back-end software engineer. What is that? Well, long story short, they develop all the cool stuff in a multiplayer game that you just don't see. The data storage, the matchmaking, the real-time mechanics of what is happening, the server infrastructure of how the game works and operates. If gameplay is the skeleton of the multiplayer body, then this is like the nervous system. It handles everything from online purchases to analytical data. This also handles how online instances are created, analyzed, and disposed of. Instances being temporary copies of areas that players interact with. I also noticed that EOS is called out, which is the Epic Online Service. This allows cross-platform play. PlayStation can play with Xbox, Xbox can play with PC, and PC can play with PlayStation. You get the idea. In other words, cross-platform playability should be a thing. Will it be a thing? That is between different companies and what is settled in between them. But as far as we know, it should be possible. So seeing all of this, I believe there's a genuine chance that Hogwarts Legacy 2 could feature a separate multiplayer mode. And there's a few reasons out of this job that point me in that direction. Number one, the main reason, the job is asking to have experience with Iris, which is an experimental replication system with Unreal based on how Fortnite handles Battle Royale instances. Every online game handles instances, so for it to be called out is kinda interesting. It gives me the idea that the game itself will handle more of it than normal, which leans toward more instant-based online arenas than full-body landscapes. Constant, persistent, long-term instances where players are constantly interacting in. Number two, it's been a very long time since we last saw the word, or the acronym, MMO. Online multiplayer RPG has been used repeatedly over and over again. So maybe we're not getting the full Final Fantasy XIV style of MMO we're thinking of. Number three, this game is also made with Unreal, which Hogwarts Legacy also runs on. Number four, why would two completely separate games need to be housed in the same building? Unless the two are working alongside each other for a reason. Number five, ever since Hogwarts Legacy was revealed, people have been begging for Quidditch and dueling and those fun mini games and everything in between, but to also play those things alongside their friends. And lastly, number six, the people leading this separate team have experience with Destiny and Fortnite. These are all people with experience dealing with a high number of player instances and game modes, not something like Elder Scrolls Online. So let me ask you a few questions. If Hogwarts Legacy 2 was going to include a multiplayer mode, section, dueling, Quidditch, whatever, would it not be better to have two separate groups? One dev team that creates the single player experience that continues what has been proven to work, and a second dev team entirely dedicated to a supplemental multiplayer game that can access from the base game, from the sequel. Think about it. Do you think the people who make Grand Theft Auto and Grand Theft Auto Online are the exact same people? No, these are two different teams that work for the same parent company. And if you've been following along this whole adventure, then I know what you're going to say. But Joe, what about the career post that said Avalanche was working on multiple games? With an S, as in plural. That means at least 2 games. Well, again, is Grand Theft Auto and Grand Theft Online the same game? No, they are 2 different games with the same core mechanics, but with different goals. If this is true, then I am 100% on board with it, and here's why. If Hogwarts Legacy 2 is going to have multiplayer, I want a separate team with a separate budget and a separate deadline schedule working on it. I don't want the core team having to worry about things like Quidditch and how to make PvP dueling or PvE dungeons or whatever they're gonna do work. And personally, I think that is the smart play. As a business, do you want to split your strongest revenue source in half, or do you want to compound further upon it by giving players additional options? Look at Fortnite. Lego Fortnite could have been a separate game entirely, but instead of selling it out like one, they included it into the overall experience. That was a very smart play. A separate multiplayer mode, by the way, would be an excellent way to tie in the narrative elements from the Harry Potter show into the sequel. What if there's a multiplayer mode that has you playing through the moments from the series? Moments that could be updated as the series is going through each of the seasons. I think that'd be actually pretty awesome. Additionally, creating PvP areas and whatnot is significantly less time consuming than creating an entire Final Fantasy XIV style MMO. MMOs, by the way, command constant attention. What happens when Hogwarts Legacy 3 comes out and you watch the player count just plummet for a month or 2? That's not good for the MMO. Furthermore, consider the idea if the first Hogwarts Legacy had a multiplayer mode. That game sold 40 million copies. Even if those 40 million people didn't even touch multiplayer, that's 40 million gamers that would still have the option. Also, which game do you think has a better chance of reaching 30 million copies sold within a few years? A brand new MMO or Hogwarts Legacy 2? And I think it's Hogwarts Legacy 2. Avalanche has everything to gain from a second team dedicated multiplayer mode than a straight up gamble on whether or not an MMO is successful. And when they do complete the core Hogwarts Legacy 2 single player experience, they don't have to then worry about what they need to do for the multiplayer thing because there's the second team that's actively working on it also. They can continue working on DLC, and if they don't do DLC, then they can go into the next game. So perhaps this is the safe and smart play Avalanche is going for. Ladies and gentlemen of the Wizagagamot, I understand Expecto Go might have the smoking gun with the careers post, but there can be multiple games in a single game. Look at Ubisoft, for example. You open up Assassin's Creed Shadows and it takes you to a menu where you can access the other Assassin's Creed games. Minister, I'd rest my case, but what do you think? Has your faith to a single-player only Hogwarts Legacy sequel been shaken up? Would you rather a separate team work on a multiplayer mode for Hogwarts Legacy, or a completely separate MMO? Let me know down below. As to the truth of the matter, we're just gonna have to find out when it's revealed in all its glory. Until then though, be safe, be well, be kind, bye-bye.